Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 243, I was very lucky, honored to have Chet Lovegren on the podcast. Yes, they call him the sales doctor. He also is a director at Pilgrim. We talked about a number of different things. We talked about how he got into sales, moving from stand-up comedy into sales. We talked about how, like, some of the challenges he's faced throughout his life. And yeah, the love of a good lady, which put him into the realm of sales. We also talked about time management as well as many other things, and his podcast. I have to say, it was a pleasure speaking to Chet. I look forward to talking with him in the future, and yeah, enjoying many other conversation. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and yeah, stay well. Peace. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 243, I am very lucky, honored to have Chet Lovegren on the podcast today. He is the sales doctor. He's done over $100 million in reserved outbound sales. And he's had a little bit of a colorful past, a little bit of a creative soul as well. I've got to definitely find out a little bit more about that. Chet, how are you today, sir?
Doing well. I'm ready to rock. For all the listeners out there, we were syncing a little bit before we hit the record button, and 3 different times he had to tell me to stop because he didn't want me to go on the roller coaster just yet. So we're ready to rock. I came prepared. We're gonna make good use of the time that we have.
Hey, look, put it this way: if I did these broadcasts live, I would have just went, "It's a NASCAR start," and away we went. NASCAR start, yes, rolling, baby. Rolling.
I prefer Formula One, but we'll stick with NASCAR. It's okay. I'm a Formula One guy myself.
Formula One guy. Oh, I see. A man who's educated in the world of motorsport on the higher level. No offense to NASCAR by any chance, but yeah.
NASCAR's fun. NASCAR has its place, right? NASCAR has its place, but if you really want to ball out, you got to go to the Formula One race. You know what I mean? NASCAR is a lot of fun. I've been to a NASCAR race before. Mm-hmm. I definitely could not conduct myself at a Formula One race the same way I did at a NASCAR race, if that makes sense. So NASCAR is the motley crew. It's the rock show. You know what I mean? Formula One is more like, hey, a little bit of exciting jazz. You know what I mean? This is some up-tempo jazz. This is your underground New York nightclub jazz on a grand scale. That's kind of how I look at the two.
Which race did you go to in NASCAR? Because there's the Daytona 500, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I went there in, probably about 7 years ago now. Just something on my bucket list, go to a NASCAR race. When I was younger, my dad was a real big computer guy. He owned he struggled to own his own business, helping people build computers, but he was a real tech guy. And this was in the early mid 90s when people build computers all the time. Back then it was kind of like a weird new thing that only tech people that were really techie were into. And so we just grew up in this culture of computer games and things like that. And there was this NASCAR computer game, this racing game, MS-DOS, Windows 95 based game with the 16-bit and the 8-bit sound processor. And we used to play that all the time, and I loved it. And I always said as a kid, I was like, I need to go see a NASCAR race someday. And so I was afforded that opportunity about 6-7 years ago. It was absolutely wild. Incredibly loud. I don't think I could do it again. I had to wear eardrum, like little ear inserts. You know what I mean? The only thing I could reference was when I was in junior high and high school, we used to go to a lot of demolition derbies. Are you familiar with demolition derbies?
I am. Indeed.
Yeah. Just get the junker cars, build them out with steel gates, and just let people run over them. So that was a really cool thing where I grew up in the Midwest in the US here. We would go to a lot of demolition derbies. That was fun. And those were loud too. But the NASCAR, when it's just like, oh my gosh, it's absolutely insane. But the crowds are so electric. It's a ton of fun. The cities are electric during the weekend of the race. It's a lot of fun. But comparing that to the Grand Prix that I seen in Long Beach, a little bit different, right? Like a little bit of a different vibe when you consider the two.
Yeah, no. Oh, talking of Formula One, I can't remember. It must have been, I'm gonna say 15, possibly 20 years ago. Like they had like Formula One cars going through the streets of London. Like I don't know if you heard of Regent Street.
Mm-mm.
Basically, it's like a famous shopping street in London. Like you've got Oxford Street and Regent Street. It's like the second biggest one. And I mean, like the cars going through that like road, you think it was deafening at like I
NASCAR.
Can't hear it, yeah, NASCAR. But when you're like literally about 3 feet away, 4 feet away from this car, which is not even hitting its maximum speed, it's most probably going 60, 70 miles an hour. You're like, oh my God. It's like mad.
Well, you have the sound bouncing off all the businesses too. I mean, at least in NASCAR, it's a wide open field. You know what I mean? Like it's a big open area. There you have, like I could only imagine the sound that's bouncing off the walls there and reverberating.
Yeah. I like one of the things I'm curious about, like, no, you are in the glorious city of Los Angeles. Like, let's just say, if watching Selling Sunset, the ladies are oh so pretty and oh so plastically. Let's just say that. Yeah, like, how did you move? Because you were working in entertainment beforehand, before you sort of like went, hey, sales is my thing. Like, how did you sort of like, what brought you to LA first of all? Was it just the entertainment vibe or was it something else?
So for anybody else who wants me on their podcast, take a lesson here because you did your research and I love that. I just had like a Nardwar moment here where you found one of my deep, dark secrets because I don't talk about my entertainment past very often. So you must have really deep dove on one of my episodes of my podcast or something somewhere to find that out. So I appreciate that because I was actually having a conversation with Troy Barter, a sales leader here in the States, about this exact thing, about talking about your past and how it's very frowned upon that a lot of people feel like they can't talk about that. I was like, yeah, I just started talking about my entertainment history past about 6 months ago. It was a thing I kept very closeted for a really long time, just because it was like, oh, now he's a sales guy. We got to take him seriously. He's a career coach, leadership coach, but he used to do stand-up comedy. So it's very recent that has come to light. So props to you for asking me that question. But it was, I went to Bible college. I grew up in the Midwest in a very like religious household. I was homeschooled until middle school. So my source of friends were Sunday morning school and Wednesday night youth group. So it was kind of natural that I just progressed to this, I want to be a preacher, right? I want to be a pastor. I played music as well. So I loved like leading worship at my youth group and things like that through high school. And so I ended up going to Bible college, and one side of pastoral studies that really interested me was the grief counseling side. So I got a minor in like counseling. So my degree is in pastoral studies with a minor in counseling. The section of religion that I was in is called Assemblies of God. And so for reference, AG is very like what you see on TV, like the fire of God and people falling down and shaking and all that stuff. And what happened was after being involved with that for a period of time, I started to get a feeling of this is not the show that I'm looking for. This is a little bit different than I expected. And I ended up kind of saying, hey, I have all this experience and I love like engaging with people, public speaking. And my brother, Ivan, had moved to Los Angeles to my older brother to pursue acting. And he said, man, Omaha, Nebraska is nothing compared to LA. The sun is shining. The beaches are full of beautiful people. The food is incredible. As long as you can deal with the traffic and the homelessness, you'll be fine. And I said, you know what? We don't have any homeless people in Omaha, really. So I don't know what to expect anyway. We don't have any traffic in Omaha, so I don't know what to expect, really. So what am I going to lose? You know what I mean? So I made the jump when I was 22 years old. Got my feet in the entertainment industry, was still doing different off and on sales jobs throughout that time to help pay my rent and pay my bills, but did stand-up comedy, did some commercials, did some internet commercials for like FanDuel and DraftKings. Those were really big at the time. And it was great. I met a lot of really cool people, and a lot of the people that I met that didn't end up making it entertainment are now in sales themselves. And so I kind of beat them to the punch because I was doing sales simultaneously the whole time. And so now they're kind of come to me for that advice. And it's kind of funny because I went to them for the acting and comedy advice, and now they're coming to me for the sales advice. So really interesting how that network kind of stayed full circle, and we're all still in touch with one another. But yeah, that's how I got out to LA. I was pursuing the dream, and I gave it a fair shot. And I tell people all the time, I gave it all I got. I reached a certain height. Like, probably the best part was when I indirectly opened for Dave Chappelle at the Comedy Store. Ooh. I say that because I was doing a set at the Comedy Store, and then he showed up randomly and went on stage right after me. Cause you know, a guy like that can walk into any comedy club and bump the next artist. And so, so I indirectly opened. So it wasn't like Dave Chappelle featuring me. It was, you know, it was me and a bunch of other of my idiot friends that were doing a show at the Comedy Store, and Dave Chappelle bumped the headliner. So, but I peaked at one point, and I went into sales full-time then at the age of 25. At 28, I said, you know what? I want to give it one more go to see if I didn't make a mistake. I kind of, you know, lessened up on my hours on the sales side, found some, you know, alternative jobs that worked for me in sales, where it was more 1099, banging on doors, commission only jobs, and pursued it again for a full year. And, you know, peaked at the same point and said, okay, that's a sign that it's going to happen. And I have this beautiful woman in my life, and she has a daughter, and I want to pursue that now. I want to be the family guy. That's what I'm going to do. And so at 29, I kind of then pulled back and went back full-time into sales. And, you know, 4 years later, here we are.
Wow. Like, this is a thing. Like, this, like, you made it to, like, basically not the promised land, comedy mecca in some respects at this present time, with the Comedy Store, like, pushing that type of boat out there. Because like, with regards to comedy, from what I've seen, it requires a rare form of perseverance, which you just can't. I think you can build it up, but it's that next level thing, because there isn't sort of like, okay, yes, there isn't sort of step-by-step moves you can just do, because, like, yes, you come in to do commercials. Like, if you want to be an actor, do commercials, get a small bit part, like, you know what I mean? Be an extra here, be an extra there, then find a bigger part and everything like this. Comedy, it's like, yeah, you're writing your own material, building your bits, like, yeah, and like trying to get that to like kill. And it's like a constant sort of, how can I say, a daily workout of your material to refine and get it right. And if you're juggling 1-2 other things as well, it makes it a little bit more difficult. I can understand your sort of decision with, like, yeah, when you meet the right lady, you meet the right lady. And yeah, responsibilities come into play. So I take it, when you did make that decision, was it a hard decision for you, or was it just really easy? Was it just like, you know what I mean?
It was an evolution of myself. If we're talking from the age where I was doing it, and then I decided to jump into sales, and then I did sales for a while, and I went back to it for a full year just to try it and make sure I was right on, I wouldn't say giving up on my dreams, but pursuing a different passion. And then I did that, and then I went back to sales full time. I would say that second time, it was an evolution of myself. And what I mean by that is, I wanted to be in entertainment because I wanted to make a crap ton of money, and I wanted everybody to know me. I wanted to be famous and rich like everybody else. Anybody in entertainment, nobody's doing it for the art. The art is for the, I feel good because I'm high art, right? Leo DiCaprio is not going to do a Marvel movie because he's high art. Yeah, Leo DiCaprio also loves dating 21-year-olds. He also loves being on a yacht. He also loves taking a private jet everywhere. He also loves being super rich and never having to worry about anything in his entire life from a financial standpoint. There's a reason he's doing what he's doing, and he keeps doing it, right? So I wanted to pursue that, and that's okay to admit that, because I knew what I was. I knew who I was. I think the comedy thing was attractive to me because at a core part of it, I kind of wanted to make people laugh. I've always been kind of the funny guy. I wanted to make people feel good about themselves. If I could do well for myself and make other people feel good about themselves, fantastic. Where I think the evolution comes in is that I understood that there is equally, if not more, good that I can do making an impact in sales, becoming that entertainment in the sales community, becoming somebody that has a big following on LinkedIn and has people looking up to them. I can do the same thing for others. Great example is a new sales rep. New sales rep in tech sales goes, okay, I'm here, and the only thing I know how to do is what my company's leadership is showing me how to do. My direct report, whatever. I can do some self-search on YouTube. I can do some self-seeking on TikTok. I can look at the Sales Talk community, see what's going on. But ultimately, I'm on my own. And I know what that feels like, and that's a terrible place to be. And so if I can help jumpstart that, if I can teach you how to manage up, if I can teach you how to prevent burnout, if I can teach you how to keep a good mindset, and more importantly, if I can teach you how to cold call really well and do all these things, that's why I put these resources out. That's why I put my own individual podcast out. That's why I do presentations with companies and do team trainings and go on LinkedIn Live with other collaborators and talk about these things, because I can help you not feel the way that I felt when I felt alone in sales, because I only had myself and whoever was around me to learn from. And so it gave me a lot more purpose. I started living with a lot more purpose when I just stuck to sales full time and wasn't thinking about entertainment. So it was hard because I had to say, hey, I'm no longer thinking fully about myself anymore, and having a house on Sunset with a pool in the backyard and having a Rolls Royce and a Harley and being cool and getting my picture taken at lunch. I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm worried about the person who's making $50,000 a year in their entry-level sales job doing well in that job and preventing burnout and doing something where a lot of people that jump into entry-level sales quit really fast. And then they never go back to sales because they have this bad taste in their mouth. What that person doesn't know is they might have been the right person to stick it out, progress down their career path, and then in 3 years, they're making over six figures easily. That can change. $125,000 a year could change someone's life.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And so that was something to me where I felt like I had to take a lot more ownership, and I was given a much bigger purpose. Over the years now, all the knowledge that I've accrued, I realized that the importance of putting it out online and spreading content and awareness is that if I died tomorrow, all this knowledge I've accrued would be completely useless. So that is the vain metric behind it, is just making sure that my efforts, aren't going to waste, because if I just keep all this knowledge to myself, what good does it do? So that's still the part that I'm able to pursue as well, sharing that knowledge. But it was originally hard, but I think there was more positives to that change because it was an evolution of myself.
No, I hear that. And this is the thing, knowing when to pivot is one of those things which I think is a strong power to have, because the whole thing is there are many a person I think gets caught in the cycle and they keep going over it again and again and not knowing when to go, hey, have I run the course? Is it time for me to change? And look, you managed to do that, and been highly successful in what you're doing. And look, another thing what I loved about it is helping people to really sort of get to know themselves in that sort of sales environment. Because look, I am a person who's done a sales call or two in my lifetime and still does. And the sort of hammer and tong nature of the way it can be on a day-to-day basis is some hard road. And if you're when you've heard no 5,000 times and you're waiting on that one yes, trying to stay up, trying to stay positive is never an easy thing. And if you can help people with that to sort of find that sort of resilience in themselves, that's always a positive thing in my mind. And it can be a positive thing in other aspects of their life as well,
And more importantly, to piggyback off that, the thing that I don't think people realize, whether you're in sales or whether you work in a corporate setting, let's be honest, even if you're a solopreneur, you still have people to answer to. Your listeners on the podcast, your buyers of your e-com product, the board that just invested VC money into your product, even though you're the CEO. Like the CEO I work with at Pavilion, Sam Jacobs, he's still got people to answer to, even though it's his own company, right? No is the best two-letter word you could hear. Because in sales, I always tell new reps, go for no. Go for no, not because no is great and we want to hear no, but go for no for one of two reasons. Number one, no is always the start of a conversation in not just sales, but in life, right? No. Well, why not no? My wife didn't originally want to date me. Well, why not? What's wrong with me? I'm a good looking guy. I'm energetic. I have dreams. I have goals. I'm in sales. I make good money. Why not? Why not me? Why not? Right. Same thing in a sales process. Well, why not our product? We've had a 10-second conversation. You're already telling me not interested. Of course, if you were interested, you would have been an inbound form on our website, and one of our inbound reps would be reaching out to you. You'd probably already have seen a demo. Help me understand. You fit our ICP. The things that you're going through at your company align with the problems that we solve associated with raising a round of funding or increasing headcount month over month. Why do you help me understand why you think you wouldn't be a good fit for our product? No salesperson is talking like that. Successful salespeople are, but no is always the start of a conversation. The second reason why is because you'll notice that after a certain amount of no's, you start getting a certain amount of yeses. And so as a sales rep, I knew that if I started making cold calls and I heard 10 no's, that 11th call, that 11th response was going to be a yes. And so I got excited when I got 8 no's because I'm like, man, I only have to get 2 more rejections before somebody says, let's do it. You know what I mean? And it was the same in acting too. I would go on 35 auditions and be told, no, you're too chubby for the role. You look too young. Cause at the time I didn't have facial hair. I couldn't grow it. We're looking for someone a little bit more muscular. We're looking for someone with a different comedy background. We're looking for someone with more experience in dramatic, acting and things like that. We're looking for a more trained professional. I would hear no a lot. And then I'd hear someone go, you're a perfect fit. And then I'd land some commercial for DraftKings where I'm, in my basically in like a pair of like tight shorts, getting body paint all over, being a fan that's really excited that people are playing drums on my belly, right? Like I would, and I would get paid well for that. And that would pay my rent for 2 months. And I felt good about booking something and I'd send it to all my friends, so you get a bunch of no's and then eventually you'll get to that yes. And so you can start tracking those no's, especially in sales. And I only bring up sales because mostly it's my background, right? I've kind of diverted into other things as well, but it's also sales is a very metric based job. So it's easy to track those things and think about it. But if you're a marketing manager and you work with a chief marketing officer and you have ways to make the website better, that CMO can only tell you no so many times to projects that you recommend. At some point, they're going to have to say yes. Keep bringing good ideas to the table. Keep being a person that's looking to make the process better. Keep talking about things that you've learned that you think might apply to what your company does and how to make them better, because that is what makes an invaluable employee, someone who you can't part with. That makes someone that at the end of the day, when we're talking about who we want to be our future leadership and stick around, we know we want Chet because he's bringing these ideas to the table. Maybe we don't implement them all. We've had to tell him no a couple of times, but we know he's always thinking about how to make the process better. And so I always tell people, like, go for no. That's the best that you can do.
I hear that because like, this is the thing, like when people often hear no, and like I'm saying this from a standpoint of people who are not in sales, no is the one word we learn immediately from when we're young, as babies, as the most negative word as well. Because hey, and like you're a father of 3, like the amount of times you've said that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, in various different tones, like softly, hard, with a little bit of panic or anger behind it. But that is a word we hear more often than not when we are growing up. No, yes. No. And to sort of like go to like look at it from the standpoint of this facilitates the start of something is a very sort of different to the nature of how that word has the relationship most people have with that word. Because as soon as we hear it, that's it. It shuts off everything. And you're like, it's the start, which I still found, like, even though I do work in sales myself, I still find it fascinating when people take that stance because, you know what I mean? It's just like overcoming that realm of negativity. And like with yourself, and like this is when I did a little bit of research into you, like you coupled together a situation where you didn't technically have something, you built something to get your sort of sales and to help you work for your auditions at the beginning. I could be wrong. Maybe I messed up on my research, or did I?
When you're talking about the entertainment?
Well, like sort of in the entertainment, sort of like, how you manage to do your entertainment and then basically, get out there doing your little sales reps here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, I found an interesting niche. And one thing I want to add to the no in the children thing, right?
Yeah.
When I'm going to throw my older brother under the bus, but when they had twins, he was the first one in the family to have kids, and he wanted to be real revolutionary. He's like, I'm never going to tell my kids no, because I want them to grow up to be great at everything and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, we'll see how long that lasts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, 6 months later, they start doing stuff. Like, no. And I'm like, okay. What my wife and I learned when we had our first together, is instead of saying no, associate a different word with things. So when my son Harrison wants to grab, like, even if it's a butter knife on the edge of the countertop when we're making toast in the morning for breakfast, he grabs a knife and he holds it. We don't say no, we say danger or ouchie. Like, what could he experience from that knife? Pain, right? When he climbs up on a chair and starts jumping up and down, that chair could easily fall. We say no, we say danger. We don't say no, we say danger, Harry, danger. Because that puts a different phrase. And now even I'll see him, if there's like an actual knife, like I'm chopping garlic and then our 4-month-old is crying and I go to pick her up while I'm like making spaghetti or something, he'll go and he'll grab the knife, sharp knife off the thing, and he'll go, Daddy, ouchie, and he'll hand it to me. Like, you got to get this out of here because this can hurt me. So parenting tip, you don't have to say no, you just have to associate the outcome. Ouchie, danger, scary, hurtful. Like, 2-year-olds love to kick. Well, don't kick your sister. Hurtful. That hurt. And he goes, so now sometimes he'll kick the air and he'll go, hurt. And he'll point at his feet. I'm like, yes, that's right. That hurts. Don't do that to people. So little parenting tip. If you don't want to if you want to totally get rid of no, just make sure to talk about the outcome. But yes, back to your topic on what I created for myself. It was interesting because when I was doing entertainment, and I think I know where you might have found this research. I think it was on Kevin Hopp's sales career podcast, where I was talking about in entertainment. What I ended up doing, he said maybe.
Who knows?
I found that when I first started really getting into sales, I had done it off and on early in my life, and when I was doing acting simultaneously, I found my way in insurance, and I was working for a State Farm insurance agent. And I found out that I was really good at the insurance game. And there were two options. I could either go find a way to get $150,000 to put up to open my own agency, which, probably wasn't going to happen in my mid-20s. I didn't have that kind of collateral or even close. Or I could go outsource my services. And the great thing about State Farm agents is they're very local to their area. So if you're in that Sunset area, that's your area. Yeah, you'll take business anywhere in California. You can legally do that with an insurance license, but you kind of stick your State Farm, your local neighborhood agent, right? You send direct mailers and you do events in your community and things like that. Well, the great thing about LA is while there is literally a place called Studio City in the north side of Los Angeles, there are studios all over the place. There are major audition locations all over the place. There are offices where auditions are being held all the time. And they're in all these different little pockets. And so what I did was I compiled a list of the top 10 places that I would do auditions, because they tend to be the most common places, Cast Studios on La Brea, Formosa Studios, right? And they're in North Hollywood in the thick of it. So there are a lot of these like similar places you'll go to audition, or even studios like Culver City. They have Fox Studios where they do all the NFL stuff and Family Guy and all the animated TV for Fox Sundays. And I started compiling a list. And then I went in that zip code and I found the what I would consider best State Farm agent based on a couple different things: their Yelp reviews, how many ratings they had and what the people had to say, and then the size of their team, which I could find on their State Farm agent website, because State Farm is a protocol at a corporate level where it lists the employees that work there. And if it looked like they were very focused on service, I wouldn't bother, because that means they're farmers. But if they had a lot of sales reps, I would go, hey, they're always interested in adding more salespeople because they're interested in growth. And more importantly, I'm going to work on a 1099. So they don't have to pay me an hourly wage to sit in a seat. So what I would say is hey, I'm an independent agent myself. What I do is I canvass businesses in the area, and I can essentially send them to your office and present them with quotes, and you let me write insurance on your behalf. I did this with like 5 other agents all across LA. And so if I went to North Hollywood and I had 2 auditions, what I would do is then I would put on my suit and I would go do a bunch of business walks, talk to people about who's your insurance provider. Do you have all these kinds of coverages? What can I offer for you? I'm with State Farm, this, that, the other. I would get their insurance policy information and I would go write a quote under the name of that insurance agent in that territory.
Yeah.
And then if I close the policy, that would go with that agent and I would track my monthly progress with each agent. Now, if I was in Torrance or Long Beach, I would work with a different agent in that area. So I would canvas based on the area I was in and then just send the business to that agent, write it under that agent's book, and then collect commission on it. And so it allowed me to really, like, instead of sitting in a seat and having to take time off all the time, or working in hospitality and then take a bunch of shifts off because I had auditions, or take like an entire morning off because I had one audition, I could just take an hour and a half off for the audition and then go work for 6 hours. So it became a much better way of blocking my time and a much better return on my investment for my time, because I was able to essentially do two things simultaneously.
Yeah, no, but this is the reason why I wanted you to talk about this, because you have a slightly different realm of thinking. You think slightly out of the box with regards to, like, I'd say, doing many a thing. With regards to that sort of time management, yes, you could have done the sort of, okay, I do silver tray service, catering, that type of bit. But you went, okay, there's another way, but where I can live to the standard I want to, or but still have that time and freedom. And I think that most really reflects well into, well, definitely what's happened over the last couple of years. Let's not say anything like that. But I think that sort of out of the box thinking has served you well. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, 100%. I think, it's actually one of the exercises I do. Anytime I give a presentation at a company or a team training, whether it's about sales or leadership or career development, I tell everybody, take a piece of paper, write a big, huge box on the piece of paper, and then write down one thing that you want to accomplish in this training. And then I ask everybody to hold up their paper, whether it's in person, which is more recent, but mostly on Zoom in the past, right? Because we won't say it, right? And everybody, when they hold up the paper, maybe one person every couple events will have written something outside of the box. And I always tell people the point of this exercise is to, number one, teach you that in anything you do other than the law of being a good citizen, there are no rules. There are no rules in sales. There are really no rules in corporate America. There are a set of rules that we are trained to think we have to abide by, right? We have these standards and these practices that we just run and assume, like telling my boss no to something. Oh my God, I can do that? Yo, it's a candidate's market. You could tell your boss a number of things. Some of them might lead you to get fired, which I wouldn't recommend. But if you did, you would be able to find a job the very next day. You're not going to be starved for work. It's a candidate's market right now, which is, I think, a very empowering for employees. And I would love to talk a little bit more at depth about later in the episode. But I can tell my boss no. I can protect my time. I can say, hey, you booked me for a call over my lunch break. That's my lunch break. You don't have to show up to that call. Protect your time, block your time. And what does that lead to? It leads to you saying no, and no is always the start of a conversation. And then your boss goes, well, why can't I book over your lunchtime? Because that's my lunchtime. That is my block for myself. I will work my butt off. I will clock in. I will clock out. I might overachieve. I might overperform, or I might just do what's asked of me, right? That may be who I am. Regardless, I'm going to do my job, but you need to protect my work-life balance. You need to protect my time, because if not, I'll get burnt out. I'll start questioning your authority and I'll go work somewhere else. And not everybody's replaceable. I'll tell you that. Everybody's replaceable, but not everybody's replaceable. And we need to understand that a little bit better. And so there are I do that exercise, right, to teach people that we put rules in places that don't belong, very, very commonly. But number two, that the goal of what you want to achieve in this training, you need to start thinking outside the box. Literally need to think outside the box. So it's great that you took the time to write that down, the thing you want to achieve, but I'm here to show you that there are no rules behind what we're going to talk about. And that sometimes when we have something we want to achieve, we need to recognize that we need to do it outside of the box. So it accomplishes two things. It also gets people to actually thoroughly think about what they want to accomplish in a team training and not just sit there because their boss told them so. But it is one of the things that I think, having that experience, creating different processes for myself. I mean, here's the other thing that working independently for 5 State Farm agents for the course of 4 years taught me. I was getting paid on a 1099. When I do my taxes, I'm a consultant. I learned about tax write-offs. I learned the fact that my new car that I could drive around that made all my friends jealous because it was hilarious because they're like, we're all struggling actors. And I'm like, I'm a struggling actor too, but I got paid. You know what I mean? That I could afford that car because guess what? 80% of the time while I was driving to an audition,
Yes.
I then was driving to a bunch of different businesses. So my lease, my gas, my parking tickets that I would get because it's Los Angeles and everybody pays parking tickets constantly. All those things, I had deductions that I could get from those because I was a consultant, because I was getting paid on a 1099. Even in a W-2, you can do these kinds of things. You know, if you don't get retributed from your work, there are ways you can say, hey, I had to buy my own uniforms for work. You know, that's the cost of doing that business. You should be able to write that off. You know, it was a big thing for police in the 80s and 90s. They started learning that some places were making people buy their own gun and their own holsters. And it was like, those are expensive. That's like $1,200, but they could write those off their taxes. And so that was another thing that taught me. And so when we try to think outside the box, I think we can accomplish a goal, but you also learn other things along the way. I probably wouldn't have learned how to properly do my finances and my taxes had I continued working as a W-2 employee. But because I chose the 1099 route and I saw that the 35% self-employed tax rate in California was killing my paycheck, I learned how to write things off that I was using in the course of my business. So another skill I learned by just thinking outside the box and trying to be creative. So it is, I have had a lot of benefit from trying to think outside the box. It has led me to a lot of learnings and a lot of findings. And most often than not, you end up learning other things you didn't even expect to. I didn't expect to become my own CPA essentially from doing that job. I was just trying to make more money than most of my friends did because they were living poor and I didn't want to live that way, but I also still wanted to pursue my dream. But then I ended up learning this entirely new skill that has been very advantageous for me as an outside consultant as well, even in the future, where I understand, hey, this ticket to this place can get written off. This is not an $800 expense. This is an $800 voucher because I'm going there to speak. I'm going there to train people. And that's, you know, that's the difference. And sometimes for people between making it and not making it.
Yeah. No, I would say, like, with regards to how you've approached this, like, would you say there has been quite a lot of self-reflection for you while going through this process? Because, like, to let go, to be able to say no on this occasion, on that, on this, it's one of those things where a lot of people would not so much have the courage, but will not have the confidence in oneself because they don't know oneself, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to do a lot of self-reflection whether you're creating yourself or you're creating a project at work or you're creating a list of things you need to get done at the home, got to pay the mortgage, got to pay the cars, got to pay the insurance. I always say one of my favorite things that comes from Jim Rohn, a great professional development speaker who has passed away. It's my biggest regret in life is I'll never get to sit down with him one-on-one and just see his big old smile and ask him a question. It's one thing in my life I always wish I could do. They say if you could ever like go back in time and meet somebody, who would you meet? And everybody always says like the standard 5 people. That's my guy. I would go back and meet Jim Rohn. But he says in order to be successful and to manage your time appropriately, you need to think on paper. And whether that's at work, you keep a spreadsheet with all your projects, the people you're working on with the projects, dates of meetings that you've had, notes from those things, action items. Sounds like a lot of work. Guess what? There are 1 billion people that think this way in the world. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but you can go online and find a template. Shoot, you can find me on LinkedIn, DM me, and I'll send you the template I use to manage projects at work. Very easy Google Doc, right? Or Google spreadsheet that you can use to track those things. Think on paper. When I put together presentations and trainings for companies, I have a bunch of stuff that I recycle, some things that I say, like my mentality on some things, it stays true, but the actual design of the presentation for the company, I do the entire outline on a Google Doc first. And it's not super in depth, but it's just like, hey, like, even if there's phrases that I want to hit on based on what their leader is telling me they want to be coached on, like if they have a problem with, if they're a sales team and they have problems sticking to their call blocks, right? Just doing one task at a time and staying hyper-focused, my phrase of let all systems of communication serve you, but don't let any of them intrude. Like I'll write that down literally on the paper to make sure I put that somewhere in the presentation. And then I'll talk about this process, but I lay everything out on an outline. And I know a lot of presenters that'll go and start building their presentation with their knowledge, and then they're just stuck in the presentation and the design. Whereas if you can get the information out first on an outline, you can think more clearly. Copying and pasting is a lot quicker than rearranging. And so do your thinking on paper. So work, use a spreadsheet, track your projects. Home, create a Google Doc or use some sort of program like mint.com. You can track your bills and it's a free account, right? They just analyze your spending habits and sell it to the government, right? But it's a free app. You can use it. You can use it to track your financial goals and your bills and all these other things in your net worth. It's really cool. Use Notion. It's a great app that you can build projects based on, and you post content online. You can do the same thing with that. When it comes to you, get a journal. It's so cheesy, and so many people think, oh, journaling. It is so true how a journal can help. I have this right here. I read this book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And he talks about, he got this career coach, and he, all these things were going on. And one of the things he talked about was how I want to make my marriage better. And so what he did was, the guy said, get a little notebook, and every day write down something. Every night before you go to bed, write down something that you're thankful about your wife, whether it's like, my wife cooked some great steak tonight, she's so amazing, blah, blah, blah. Even if it's that, because it'll change your reflection at the end of the night on your wife and your relationship with your wife. Right here next to my desk. Last night, wow, I've been so busy lately, I should write more. My Nancy, my wife, really deserves to know how much I love her. I hope I can give her some time this weekend. Hopefully we can put the kids to bed early and watch a movie together. You know what I mean? We watched a movie. We're going to watch a movie this weekend. I made a point. I'm going to put it on my calendar. I'm going to put it on her calendar. Kids are going to bed early on Saturday night. We're going to watch a movie together. We're going to spend that time together. Busy life with 3 kids, but I'm going to make that a priority because I wrote it down and I genuinely feel that way. If I don't write it down, even if I genuinely feel that way, it won't get done. She gave me this for my birthday a few weeks ago, which is kind of cool, but it's a little, I think she got it off TikTok, but the regardless of where she got it, the purpose that it serves is just important. She wrote down a bunch of like little prayers, like things I can say to myself when I get stressed. Now, this thing was not very full when she gave it to me. There's maybe 2 that I've used since my birthday. So don't worry. It's not like this thing is full and I'm going nuts, right? But anytime I'm feeling that way, I open my little box, I can unroll a little scroll and read myself an affirmation. You know what I mean? Because we took the time to write these things down. We're here to support each other. We're focusing on ourselves. I'll tell you what, I didn't do the cheesy things for almost a decade. I've been doing them for almost 4 years now. The cheesy things work. I can tell you that. I was an individual contributor and account executive in 2019, closing deals at a software company. Next year, I was an SDR manager leading a team of 8 people. Now I'm a director of sales development and I have a successful consulting practice. In less than 3 years, I've gone from a salesperson to a mid-level manager. And who knows, maybe next year I'll be in a senior executive position as a head of sales development or a VP of sales development. Who knows what the future has? But it wasn't until I started doing these things, thinking on paper, writing things down, affirming things, being true to myself, getting my emotions out on paper. You get your emotions out on paper, you're less likely to feel burnout. I'll tell you that. It's all about self-reflection.
Yeah, I hear that. And like, this is the thing. I think it's very important to have that sort of the reminder of having gratitude. Because like I was in the office last week, and like basically like in the morning, because I get there very early, because where I have to travel from to get to the office, it makes me get there a lot earlier than other people. I was talking to a couple of guys in the office and they were like going, we're in the office, work. I was like going, but like, I went, yeah, but if you remember what it was like a year ago, if you remember what it was like 18 months ago, yeah, we weren't in the office. We were locked down. We were in our homes. We weren't going anywhere. And like, yeah, the future was quite grim. And it was like, okay, be grateful that you are in the office, and be grateful that the fact that things are looking much more brighter and much more better. And like, it's these small things with regards to your marriage where you like go, yes, these are the things I'm grateful for with my lady. Like, because yeah, with one child, it is hard. With 2 children, it is difficult. With 3 children,
it's a zoo.
It's a zoo. To say the least. And
that's the thing. I have no problem in being open and honest that, you know, when we had my 2-year-old, and then we had him in February 2020. Well, she had him. I didn't have him, right? She did the work. She had him in February 2020, right? And, you know, we were raising him and doing all that. And then the pandemic hits and we're all at home and stuff like that. You know, just understanding like it's my child, but I didn't have to carry him for 9 months. And even now, like, you know, my friend Stan, he told me, because he's like, oh, this is your son, your first son. Don't be offended, but he's not going to want you for like a year. It's going to be the mommy show. He'll want to play with daddy and all these things. It's going to be the mommy show. And going through that period was all on her to fulfill that need of his. It gets stressful, you know, pandemic, we're all at home. We have 2 kids now. My son is needing a lot of help. Like, and things get stressful and marriages get stressful, but implementing something like this affirms the reason why we're together. So that when it does get to this like boiling point, we're like, oh my God, why do you not see it like this? Everybody feels that way. That's the secret. Not everybody has this beautiful Instagram-like marriage. You have arguments, you have fights, you have differences in opinions, but writing these pieces of gratitude down is the thing that makes the difference between when that blood boils, just understanding that it's an argument, you're seeing differently, you're miscommunicating. It's the difference between that and saying something really stupid that puts you on the couch, or even in some situations, friends I know, puts you in an apartment, you know, or now you're no longer married. And those are the things that, you know, you have to do those things. You have to do those things. Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Great book that just talks about how to easily do gratitude and reflection in the morning and get your day started off right. And it's so important to make sure you work for you before you work for anyone else. I recommend that to anybody. Don't get up, drink your coffee and log in and doing your job. Get up, drink your coffee, do whatever you need to do, and then go work on you for 30 minutes to an hour, and then go work your job. You will notice a dramatic shift in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things, I always say, try to make your life 2% better each day. Like, because it's the small things, the small individual things you do to make your life better, because you might not hit that 2% every day and you might fall back. But when you kind of look over the course of time, you know, where you started from, you might go, wow, my life is 30% better than it was like how many other days it's been, which has passed by. But the little things are the things what can make things better, but it's also the little things which also put you in the hole or put you behind the 8 ball, because you just sometimes are not aware of it, because it's happened over the course of 1 year, 2 years, a decade, 2 decades, and before you know it, you're like going, hey, as you mentioned, you might have a happy marriage, but over the course of time, it's put you in an apartment block where you don't necessarily want to be because of the slow erosion over the course of time, you know?
You hit on something important, and it's a big thing that people need to differentiate. When it comes to gratitude, focusing on the small things can make all the difference. When it comes to things that aren't gratitude, when it comes to work, don't focus on the small things. And people forget that. Don't major in minor things, because when you put major work on minor time, you're behind the curve instantly. As you said, being behind the 8 ball. And so that's an important distinction that people need to make, that they don't. When it comes to appreciation, gratitude, manifestation, talk about the tiny things. Talk about the fact that, you know, you got a late start, you're already working, and your wife knocks on the door and says, hey, you want me to make you a cup of coffee real quick? And then she comes back with a cup of coffee, and you didn't have to go take that, 3 minutes to go do that yourself. Focus on that beautiful act of service. When it comes to work, and your boss books a meeting over your lunch, and don't worry, I have nobody that booked a meeting over my lunch. It's just the recurring theme that I hear from reps all the time that I career coach. It's like, what do I do when people book over my blocked out breaks? If somebody books over that, put a stop to it in the very beginning. Because if not, guess what's going to happen? If you don't nip it in the bud right there, you're going to keep thinking about how disrespectful that was. And you're going to keep thinking about this minor thing, and you're going to consistently dwell on it. And next thing you know, you're going to be putting major time towards something that was really minor, that you could have very easily solved very fast with hey, I have these blocks on my calendar for a reason. I understand that maybe you have some urgency in solving this problem, but if you could please just check with me before you just automatically assume I'm going to show up and book over it, that would be really helpful for me.
Absolutely.
It's respect, right? It's a respect thing.
Yeah. And like basically, with respect, it's like it's one of those things which people don't often forget. It's a thing which is earned, and that goes on both ways. If you don't earn it, you'll never get it, and if you're not willing to earn it, hey, you've got some real problems ahead for yourself, you know?
I mean, think about it in a marriage, right? Work is a marriage in some aspects. And if every day that you had to go into the office, your wife asks you to do something on your way into the office that takes you 30 minutes out of your way, but she puts so much emphasis on it needing to be done, but she wants it done first thing in the morning. Here's some money I have. Go make a deposit at the bank first thing in the morning. Well, it's 45 minutes out of my way. I understand, but I want it done now. But it's like, well, you're going to be in that same exact neighborhood at 2 p.m. Wouldn't you rather just do it? No, because I want it done at 8 a.m. before work. That need to get that done. It's similar to the calendar thing, right? I need to get this done now, but that's not respectful of my time. And so think about that. If you were in a marriage and that's how it operated, I'd venture to say in 3 years, you're probably not going to be in a marriage anymore. And so companies they're bitching and moaning and crying and playing the pity party of, we can't get people to stay here. Everybody quits after a year. People hopping jobs left and right. The average tenure of a sales rep is 18 months. Yeah, because you have no respect for them. Respect is earned, but it also needs to be asked for. And unfortunately, reps don't feel empowered enough to ask for that respect. Even frontline managers don't feel like they can command that respect. And unfortunately, in the corporate world, in order to earn that respect, you have to command a little bit of it up front. But I've seen it time and time again where someone will let something slide that they wouldn't if they had a choice. And then it's just a downhill battle from there, because there are three types of people that work at any company. There's builders, there's maintainers, and there's departers. Departers, they're easy to spot. And I've heard a friend say they either need to be helped out or helped out. And that makes complete sense. There are maintainers. These are people that'll clock in and clock out. They'll do their job really well. They're not going to overachieve. So the way we lose them is by giving them things that requires too much of their energy or focus that they just simply don't have the bandwidth or the desire to do. And then builders, which I think that companies think that everybody should be a builder. Everybody who comes in should overperform, overachieve, clock in early, clock out late, deliver 110%, if not 120% of results. But unfortunately, only half your team is probably going to be comprised of builders. If you're lucky, majority of the time it's 30%. And you lose builders by leaning on them too much. And how that happens is constantly bringing things to them. And then eventually they go, well, what are you doing with your time? These all seem like things in your job description. What are you doing with your time? Or better yet, what are the other people that have similar titles and responsibilities to be doing with their time that you won't give them this work? And it's okay to lean on them, but leaning on them too much can make them start questioning the time spent of others, and if they're just a punching bag. And so it's the same thing with like, calendar respect and things like that. If the second somebody lets somebody do something like that, you open the door for that to continue to happening because you haven't set your boundary. And it's just so important to be able to set your boundary, because if not, look, your mental state's going to deteriorate. Your relationship with your company is going to deteriorate. You're going to feel burnout. And you're going to quit and start over somewhere else all over again. And while that may be the solve for you at that time, that's probably not the solve that you really need.
No, because you're not solving the underlying problem, which might hang with yourself personally. Sometimes it can be the actual organization you work for, but if it's like it's happened once, twice, 3 times, because you are the constant in that equation, it's like there is something unresolved in that individual. But like also, I would say if it keeps on happening within that organization, there's something fundamentally wrong in that organization, whether it be a case of they don't understand team dynamics, or whether it's a case of they don't actually understand where they want to go. So they just sort of run at it, like into the middle of a field, like going, okay, this is where we're going. Where's the final destination? I don't know. Just run. Let's go for it. It's sometimes difficult.
I've been on those conversations. It's so crazy because you see it happen time and time again. Yeah. If it is an organizational problem, and it's, you see it. I've seen it happen as a consultant. I've seen it happen as a leader at certain organizations. It's like this is our person. This is our guy, or this is our girl, right? They're doing 110% of quota. They're always helping train new reps. They're this, they're that. And the second they say no, they go from a builder to a departer. They don't even make a pit stop at maintainer. They don't even get the benefit of that doubt. They go straight in that person's mind from a builder to a departer. And guess what happens when the leadership team starts manifesting that thought? The actions start to speak louder than the words, and that person starts to feel it. And then you just did turn them into a departer. And we don't think about that when I have a rep onboarding at Pavilion right now. And I told one of my reps, who's very helpful all the time, I said, here's the deal. I know I lean on you for a lot. It's because you do well. And I didn't want to have other people get a chance at helping me with this part of this girl's onboarding plan without asking you first. Because I didn't want to have other people doing it and you go, well, why isn't Chet involving me? I didn't want that to raise any questions. So if you're willing to help, let me know. I know last month was tough. You're really focused on other things this month, but I don't want to overbear you. So if it's a no, that's completely fine too. I want to know where you stand. So I'm either saying like, hey, I want to involve you, and I want to make sure that I involve you first because you deserve it. You're doing good at your job and you've been this person historically. But if you say no, that's going to be fine because I understand empathy, your situation. You had a bad month last month. You had personal stuff going on in your life, and you're on this path that you're trying to take where you really need to make this month count. So if you don't want to take that time to help someone, I understand. She goes, you know what? I could maybe help here and here, but what I've done normally in the past for other reps, I don't think I can commit to that. Thank you for being honest. You're still my builder. You're not even at maintainer. You're not a departer. And I'm not going to treat you as such. I'm going to keep treating you as a builder because I respect you. And too many times in management, we go, that person's not bought into the company anymore. Give me a break. That person is not bought into the workload because the workload they've done up to that point, guess what? It doesn't attribute to their quota. They've seen time and time again, you've leaned on them too much, that when they do this, it's taking away from their production. Their lack of production takes away from their commission potential. Their lack of commission potential takes away from the quality of life that they're trying to have. And more importantly, their time to be professionally developed. I think, time is a currency that we are all running out of and we will never find more of. It's the one currency in the world we can never add more of. We're all slowly running out. We start with this $1 million balance and we're slowly withdrawing from this trust fund of time. And, a lot of reps have stopped asking the question of what am I getting paid here? But they're more focused on what am I becoming here? And if we start turning someone into our lackey, happiness it's not contained in what you get, but what you become. And if we start turning someone into a 9-to-5 office drone and everything's expected and this, that, the other, and we lean on them too much, that's exactly how we turn someone into a departer. And we end up losing good builders because of that. And they don't have the time to learn and develop and become something more. I am not where I'm at right now because I want to be in my same role for 2 years. I'm at where I'm at right now because I can do a hell of a job. I built a program from the ground up. I did a bunch of stuff for the company. I've attributed revenue to that. They see what I'm doing. And I'm going to leverage that to get a promotion at some point at the company or to put on my brag book on LinkedIn that, hey, this great company that everybody loves, I helped raise this amount of funding with them. I did this for them. This is what I can do for you. And that builds up my consulting business. The founder knows that's my goal. He knows that's my motive. I'm up front and straight with it. And I'd like to feel that there's mutual respect because he knows that. Nobody wants to be a sales development rep forever. Nobody wants to be a middle or senior manager forever. Most senior managers want to become executives. Most executives want to become entrepreneurs. That's just how it works. And so if you're not at a place where you can achieve that, you end up turning the focus on what they're getting paid, not what they're becoming. And happiness is not contained with what you get. It's in what you become.
So I have to ask, what are you becoming? Where do you see yourself? Because look, yes, you're a consultant. Yes, you work in sales. Yes, you build sales teams, but what are you becoming, Chet? What are you becoming?
I am becoming a hot mess with 3 kids. I'll tell you that, man. I had a friend. No, I'm just kidding. I had a friend tell me that when you go from 2 to 3 kids, you go from playing man-to-man to zone defense. And man, he could not, Bradley, you could not have been more correct there when you told me that, sir, if you are listening. No, I think my goal and what I'm becoming is I don't want to be a consultant full-time because I want to make a lot of money and just build things all day. That's a fun part of the job. I want to become a consultant because guess what? The 20-person software company that has just hit $1 million in annual revenue, who wants to receive 25 million and 30 million in funding, but their product was built by someone who's on product and they don't know the sales function the way they should. And it's just been product-led growth the whole time. And they need to build an account-based strategy. I want to come in and help them do what they need to get done, because when I improve that person's life, I improve the lives of everybody that has anything to do with anyone working at that company. I improve his family's life. I improve his relatives' life. I improve, I could go so deep on how that improvement of someone's business affects someone and their family and their relatives and their friends. We don't have time for that, unfortunately. That could be a whole 2-hour conversation in Keynote. People don't understand the impact that they really have, but I could impact that entire company. And if that company then raises money, they can hire more people. Guess what? They're impacting those people's lives now, because we're creating jobs, and more jobs creates a better economy. So I want to impact people's life, whatever that looks like. I'm impacting people's lives at Pavilion right now, leading my team, helping other teams get to where they need to go, helping the teams that buy our product and leverage our services. I'm helping the people that I consult with right now to make their people better leaders, to make their employees better employees, and understand the importance of professional development. The people that I career coach one-on-one that are account executives and first-time managers, I'm helping them become better at their job. I'm helping them be better at working towards this future that they want. I want to help people get better, whether it's through a business and a consulting gig, whether it's a career coaching gig, whether it's a 9-to-5, like a Pavilion where I'm working and I'm doing impactful work there. I want to give people the opportunity to really be something outside of themselves. And it's part of why I'm so passionate when I talk about respect and building a culture of respect, because let's even say 10 out of 10 reps, if you ask them, hey, would you feel comfortable telling your manager no to a meeting they booked during your lunch break? All 10 of them would say, are you kidding me? I would never tell my boss no. And that's a problem. To me, that's a problem. I am okay if people tell me no. It's what made me a successful sales rep. I used to tell people in discovery, no is not a dirty word. At some point, I'm going to get busy. You're going to get busy. You can't make a call. You can't respond to an email. You can't tell me that, yes, my boss signed off and we're moving forward. And that's okay. I would prefer us keep a line of communication open, because when we don't feel like we can do that, that's when I become a pest with follow-up. That's when you feel like I'm not responding to you or being helpful. So let's understand that no is not a dirty word, and we're okay saying it to one another. This is how, as an individual contributor, when I was a salesperson, I sent pricing and proposals. I never got ghosted. People would always respond to me, even if they couldn't buy it. Because fantastic, you can't buy it, sounded like you were like this was an open and shut case for you when we were demoing the product. What changed? Well, my boss looked at the finances here. Oh, okay. Well, that's the beautiful thing about budgets, is they always move around when something comes along that makes sense. What does your boss need to see to justify this price point? Now you're having a conversation, and then you win the deal because you're actually having the conversation. So the person going, oh, I couldn't buy it, and they did all this work with me. Now I feel really shy and I don't want to say anything. And if I just avoid their emails and calls for 3 months, eventually they'll stop calling me. That's why reps get ghosted, because they don't set that expectation. You need to do the same thing in your job. You need to set the expectation. I'm not saying tell your manager no about everything, but you need to be okay with your boundaries. You need to be okay. And sometimes your manager is going to give you stuff that you can't accomplish, and you might feel like you're getting overworked. Sometimes they're trying to see how you handle that workload, and they want to see if you can do things that are a bit above and outside of yourself for professional potential and learning experiences, which is also good. But then there are times where you definitely feel it, this person is overstepping their respectful professional boundary, and I need to tell them no. And that's where we need to be okay telling people no, and being okay saying no to ourselves sometimes. When you're at work, think about work. When you're at the beach, think about the beach. Don't try to craft the perfect email during breakfast, because that's going to be a really weird email. Don't get to the office before you're at the office. If you're thinking about the golf course or the beach or the pub when you're at work, then guess what? When you're having a pint with your friends, you're going to be thinking about what you got to do tomorrow at work. And that just doesn't happen. So be okay telling yourself no. Also, it's a no is not a dirty word.
No is not a dirty word. No can be a word of empowerment.
Yes.
There you go. Oh, brilliant. I like that. This is the thing. I like this because it seems like, yes, one of the books you mentioned, The Count of Monte Cristo, transformation, with a certain fashion. Well, hopefully not in the realm of revenge, which the book heavily leans on, but still, yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. So with this, like, and with all of the things you're doing, like, you decided to like sort of get into the foray of like, yeah, podcasting. Why that medium? Because there are many other mediums you can go to.
Yeah. So I will say this about podcasting. If you look at the entirety of how long my podcast has been around,
Yes,
I am nowhere near 200 episodes on paper. I had like 20 episodes that I did in the first 6 months that all got erased because I changed my format completely. And I was like, hey, that was my V1 of podcasting. So I have about 35 episodes that I've conducted myself under my belt. Only about 20 are actually still active on the podcast, and we continue to release more episodes. But when I started, one, it's low friction. It's easy. It's easy for us to do this. I didn't have to fly across the pond to come do this with you. You know, you didn't have to fly across the pond, come do this with me. We can jump on a quick call. We can talk a little bit. We can get to know each other. We can set up a time to record. We both have good audio and visual equipment. It's easy. It's easy to get that information out. It's speed. And that's what it's all about. You have to get the information out quickly. I also think that it's just the world is shifting and people are getting, I mean, all music sounds the same now, just about. So everybody's getting bored of music. And now we're going back to the classics. It's like The Office. That's why people keep rewatching The Office on TV, because they don't want to go watch a new show because they might not laugh and they feel like they wasted 30 minutes. So they're going to go back to what they know. It's why classic music is why the Beatles are making a big comeback. And it's like, wow, 18-year-olds are talking about the Beatles and the Doors. What the heck is this about? You know, they're talking about Queen, like, good gracious. Well, that's because all music now sounds the same. It's all, you know, watermelon, sugar, big booty, high, all that stuff, right? Whether it's Harry Styles or whether it's Trippie Redd, it's all the same type of music now. And so I think people are veering from that as a source of entertainment and moving more towards informative sources of entertainment, documentaries, podcasts. I think something like, you know, hate him or love him, Joe Rogan's $200 million Spotify deal is a big thing for all podcasters because it just puts a new focus on that medium. It's kind of like streaming, you know, a decade ago. It was a new thing. Podcasting is obviously not new, but at the time streaming was a new thing. And it wasn't until 4 years ago, or I'd say maybe even 5 years ago, more realistically. I think time flies, and so my perception might be off. But remember when like Netflix started doing their own movies and people were like, this is weird. Jake Gyllenhaal's doing a Netflix movie. Yeah. He's not doing a studio film. He's doing a Netflix film. Now Amazon is doing a Lord of the Rings, what is it, like a 20-hour Lord of the Rings TV show, like costs like $1 billion. Like, what the heck? Like, this is nuts, you know? And I think, you know, that deal for Joe Rogan kind of made podcasting the same thing. So now you have a bunch of like indie studios, these individual podcasters that are hitting their mark for their niche and where they're at. And then you have these other big podcasts. Like if you're into comedy, you probably listen to the Daily Dollop, you know, or, you know, Under the Desk News, if you're really into like politics and stuff like that, you know? And so I think it's just a really good medium that is, while it's been around for a while, it's going to continue to explode. It's going to get bigger. And it's a very easy way to reach people. It's an easy way to meet different people in different places. I mean, I don't think I've had a single person from Southern California on my podcast. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was doing in-person conversations. Yeah. And so it's also a very good place to get started, you know, asking questions and meeting people and understanding guest formats. You know, had we jumped on a podcast with no outline 3 years ago, I probably wouldn't have anything to say, but I feel like we've had a lot of informative content and back and forth. And that's because I've had that experience, you know, and the more times you see the ball, the better the laces look. I can see a curveball, I can see a slider, I can see a high fastball from a mile away. But the first time you pick up a bat, if you see an 80-mile-per-hour slider low and away, you're going to swing at that thing and close your eyes. You can close your eyes and swing away. But if you're Manny Machado, right, you're like, curveball high and tight, I know where to hit this sucker, you know. It's that experience and that ability to have more conversations at a more rapid pace and spread that information, I think, is really attractive to me about podcasts.
Yeah, like this is the thing with podcasts. I do believe, like, okay, we live in a world which, okay, you can get connected with 10,000 people on LinkedIn in in a space of a month, no problem at all. Like you can basically talk to anyone around the world in seconds, like what we're doing right now, no props. But the sort of art of conversation is one of the things which has kind of faded in this world. And I think with regards to podcasting, it's sort of that flickering light. It's that ember which is refusing to go out. And we need more conversations to be had. Yes, be it about politics, life in general, even sales, or like, Lord of the Rings, like say. Mm-hmm. But these conversations, if they're not had, and if podcasting wasn't around, I think it's one of those things where the reason why podcasting is blowing up is because people want to hear good quality conversations. They don't want to hear screaming points from one side or the other. They have much more, people have much more nuanced understandings about many things in the world. It's just a case of the mainstream media as it is. Don't see it that way. They see it as you've got to be one or the other, and no one should have that conversation at all. Hence the reason why they have problems with people like Joe Rogan and many of people of his ilk. And look, I'm not saying Joe Rogan's a folk hero for everyone out there or whatnot. He's definitely not going to be some people's cup of tea. But what he does and how he does it is important, because other people can do it that way or find a different slant on how they can do it. For me, with podcasting, it's more of a selfish thing as well. I won't lie about it, because look, when you're in your late teens, I've said this before many a time, when you're in your late teens, early 20s, you go, okay, we're going to go out. We're going to hit the town. We are Legion. Oh, you hear the big cheer. You're like, okay, yeah, and off you go. In your sort of mid-20s, like early 30s, you're, we are Legion. And you're like, the cheer is not as loud. Like,
it's a grunt.
You get to your sort of mid-30s, it's like, we are Legion. It's like, no, we're a highly trained crack commando group.
Yeah.
Legion's like over here having kids, like moved away, everything like this. But over the course of time, you lose those conversations you would randomly have if you went out on a night out. You lose these like touching points where, you might not appreciate the conversation at the time, but you've had that conversation and it's an opportunity to make you grow. You might have a discussion where your idea and their idea come together, get a little bit frisky, and bad idea falls away, but a new one might come out of it. But all of these things with podcasting for me has helped me grow. It's helped me have these conversations with people all around the world, and giving me a fresh perspective and gratitude for life, because there are people out there I've had conversations with who've had life a hell of a lot harder than I, and you know what I mean. Without that perspective, I'd surely miss out,
Yeah. And to your point, that art of conversation, one of the key reasons I wouldn't want to say dying, because I think there are a lot of people doing what they can to resuscitate it. But the reason it's not where it was is because people just can't say no. It's like I talked to Troy Barter. I referenced him earlier in the episode. He was on my podcast. We recorded an episode last week, and we were talking. Remember, I was talking about your background. Like some people are afraid to talk about their background before sales because they think people won't take them seriously or this, that, the other. He said, I kept my background very closed off. I used to be a beat maker and a battle rapper. Do you think that a SaaS company based in San Francisco, California, would want to know that I was a East Coast battle rapper in the early 2010s? Can you imagine some of the things I might have said that would not align with their corporate mission statement? And I said, yeah, that's completely true. There are ads that I was probably in that if you looked at it, you'd probably be like, oh, that's not very funny, because it was 2010, 2011, 2012. Comedy was a little different. And that's okay, because that's progression, right? That's progress. That's what we talk about. We understand, hey, maybe that's not a thing we talk about anymore. That's not very right to say. And there are things like that need to be visited. But more importantly, people are also just afraid to say no and go, well, that's you, but that's not me. This is my authentic self. And I'm not saying if you're, whatever, if you're this crazy underground conspiracy theorist that, has a bad label on their name, to go out and be that in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a level of humanity you need to learn and understand and be a part of. But if it's that, hey, it's not like if the founders and my bosses of Pavilion listen to this, the first thing they're going to do is email me and go, hey, is there something we did? And I'm like, no, it's not about you. It's about the 3 companies that I'm consulting with that I learned from. And I talk to their employees about what's going on when they implement a process and none of their employees give a crap and they won't complete it. And they're like, can you figure it out for us? And I have one-on-ones with their employees. And I learned that they all just feel that their time is being disrespected. They don't feel that sense of leadership that they want. And it all boils down to them not being able to say no. Hey, we do this job all day long. We can tell you that might not work. And if you just shut us down, then we're going to shut down too. You're turning builders into departers. And again, like, I will harp on that until the day I die. You have to be okay saying no. And so it's not about anything specific. It's about the general culture of what we live in. Do the job that I pay you for. You pay paid to do this job, go and do it. Great. That gives me a great sense of pride. I really want to clock in and clock out every day. I really want to be a number. I really want to just be another seat that's filled. I heard somebody say that when they do conflict resolution, they say, this job is very competitive and we have to justify the ROI of having the seat open and in your name. Great. So I'm just a seat to you. That is the worst way to open a conversation with someone when you're talking about performance management. It's okay to call out the competitiveness of the job, but you need to be more in line with, we took a risk on you. And there's a certain level of performance that we expect. And if that performance is not met, these conversations end differently. But don't tell somebody that it's a seat that we have open that you're in. And if you don't do it, then I'm just a number. I'm just a seat. And if you make people feel that way by saying, this is your job, I pay you to do that, this, that, the other, and you can't ever have, I'd rather have honest conflict than dishonest harmony. And people being afraid to tell their bosses or even other people at the company no. You have to be ready to give a reason. So don't just say no and be that jerk that just refuses to do anything. You have to have an actual reason, and you have to have a justification that makes sense. You have to write it in purple crayon, but be okay saying no. And it goes the same way in conversation. People shut down because they feel like they can't say no. I have 2 SDRs I've talked to right now. They're not performing and they're afraid to ask for help because they feel like they can't communicate effectively with their SDR manager. And that's simply the triggering, the compelling event was due to not being able to say no.
Yeah. Would you say, like, it seems like even with regards to what's happened through from 2020 to present day, with regards to like the pandemic and all of that, it seems like corporate companies still don't some of them don't kind of get the value of people, how they can benefit their organization or they can't benefit their organization. Do you find that still a running problem, or have they got better?
Well,
that eye roll says it all.
Oh man. Oh man. We're gonna have to do a follow-up episode because I could give you the insights on that. Here's the thing: they know better.
Yeah.
They're playing the victim card. The great resignation. Oh, we can't get people to work. Yeah, you pay people $13, and we're not even talking about tech sales at this point. We're talking about fast food companies, right? We're talking about conglomerates like McDonald's, where their billionaires are rolling in more money than they know what to do with. And if they went bankrupt tomorrow, they'd suffer everybody's pensions that is below the 1% earners in that company, so they could all reap in the profits. The thing is, they know they have. This is the problem. Since the pandemic, we have seen the value of people. I don't know how it is over there, but I'll tell you right now, I went into a Walmart on Saturday with my son to get some of we like to get the big items at Walmart, the big things, the sparkling water, the diapers, it's cheaper, right? There was a line of 14 people waiting for the one cash register that had one person working it on a Saturday at 11 o'clock in Torrance, California. The parking lot was full. The store was full. You couldn't go 2 feet without bumping into someone. And they had one cashier working the entire place. I'm not exaggerating. So Walmart in Torrance, California, whoever's listening to this, you need to figure it out. And what's ironic is during Christmas time, my wife and I were there on a diaper run, getting some diapers and some wipes for the kiddos.
Yeah.
And the lady who was checking us out, and they had a lot more people at the check stand, was just complaining, literally verbally to a friend next to her about, oh, this place doesn't give a bleep about us. And this is crazy how they run their business. And I'm supposed to be on break and all this other stuff. Well, look, they have one person working the check stand now out of the 8 that were there 4 months ago, 6 months ago, maybe. The businesses are seeing the value of people. The problem is they are not taking ownership of those results. It is not us. It's not Joe Biden or Donald Trump giving us money to sit at home. I can tell you that I know people that are in that position. I have relatives that were in that position. They're not living a great quality of life just because you're giving them a little bit of money because they can't work at their job. You know, they want more. The problem is they can't get it. And then you have the argument of, well, if you want more, then go get the education. Some people aren't afforded that opportunity. Why does somebody have to have, I have a relative who doesn't have a high school diploma. Does that mean he should be treated with less respect than a doctorate? No, that's not humanity. That's not equality. That's not equity. That's not what companies preach all day long. And, you know, when things happen, they want to all put up, you know, they want to change their logo to look this certain way for this certain type of month. And then the next thing they go is, oh, this person doesn't deserve any respect though, because of their education level. You want more money? Go. Yeah. I mean, should somebody without a high school diploma make as much as someone that has a doctorate? Well, if they're in medicine, right, it's a little different. There's those kind of conversations, but there is a general feeling with a lot of people that this is how it is, you know, and I'm not getting respect. I shouldn't be treated any less respect because I work the front counter at McDonald's or a cashier check stand at Walmart than someone who's saving lives in an ER room. We're all humans at the end of the day. We want to preach equality, equity, and all this inclusion, then we need to act that way. And the problem is that companies, instead of owning up to what they did, they were bad, right? They need their spanking. They need to learn their lesson. Instead of accepting that, they're going, it's on them. It's the government's fault for giving people money. It's TikTok's fault for making people think that they actually deserve work-life balance. I have heard an executive say that. If it was not for the work-life balance bullshit on Twitter, nobody would care about working from home. I have heard an executive at a company say that. And when I heard that, I went, I don't think I can help y'all out at all. Like, I don't think there's anything that I can do to help because I really don't want to help at that point. I will reach out to every employee you have at that company and offer free career coaching because if that's the type of leadership they have, and pardon for the language, but I heard somebody say that and I could not believe that somebody was blaming their company's problems with getting people to go back into an office because of the work-life balance conversations that happen on Twitter. It was incredible when I heard that. And I said, that is not the problem. The problem is that you want to hire too many people for not enough work, and people don't want to go sit in an office for 9 hours a day and 2 hours in their car. And you're unwilling to budge. You're unwilling to even say, okay, well, how about this? How about, can we all commit to coming into office once a month for 2 days? End of month, last 2 days of the month. Can we all commit to coming into the office and being a team together? You won't start, you know, we're asking for a yard, but you won't offer an inch to start. So offer an inch. And then you'd be surprised how many people are more receptive to giving you a yard. But the problem is that we want to take the whole thing all at once and get it our way. And then when people don't comply, we're the victim. The corporations are the victim. Nobody wants to work. Great resignation. Nobody wants to be bullied. Well, people want to be respected. That's what it is. It's not that people don't want to work. People don't want to be disrespected.
Well, I put it this way: when you mentioned the Great Resignation, like, look, when the world collectively stopped and actually took a breath and breathed, because they've been going at it for the longest time. Went, wait a second, do I really want to do this? Do I really need this in my life? And look, just like going, oh wait. Spending time with the kids. It might be like, this is what, like, some people might go, this is wonderful. Other people might go, oh my God, let me get out of here. But it gave everyone that opportunity to like go, right, where do I want to go? Right, what do I want to do with my life? And like, rather than sort of corporations, from what I've seen of some corporations, not all corporations, they kind of didn't take that breath. They just went, okay. They were just looking for as soon as possible, let's get it back onto that same thing. When it could have been like, okay, hey, we're taking a breath. Wait, are we actually going in the right direction with the company philosophy, ideology, or like, you know what I mean? Are we missing a trick here with the current business we're doing? You know what I mean? This company's been around for 50 years. How can we guarantee it's going to be around for the next 50 years? Because this global pandemic, it pretty much put the kibosh on literally 80% of everything in the globe, not just in the country, in the globe, period. It was like, yeah, if you weren't a supermarket or a quote unquote essential service, you weren't doing anything. So it just kind of surprises me that, yeah, some companies have just not learned, if you get what I mean. They are just as hard-headed, bullish as they always were, when they should be maybe thinking down a different track.
Perhaps. Well, it's I'll leave the listeners with this. Unfortunately, it's human nature to be a hypocrite. You have to learn how to not be. It's human nature. It's human nature to put off the unpleasant. And you know what? Living up to what you speak about. I mean, I might have my SDRs that I've coached through this and this and go, hey, Chet, sometimes you don't act on your own advice. Great. Point it out to me. Let's have a conversation. I thrive off that feedback. Let's figure out where I went wrong based on my mentality, because I'm not a perfect person and I might miss that. You know what I mean? But it's human nature to put off the unpleasant. And frankly, walking the walk is very unpleasant. It's tiring. It's long. It's hard. You need to balance yourself. You got to go really far. And so the two things that companies are so high on is number one, feedback, and two, giving a crap, right? Going 120%, overachieving. So fantastic. Then how about you take some feedback on the fact that we can do our jobs from home equally as well. While there are learning curves, there are ways that we can supplement that. It's very tough for SDRs to onboard sales development reps, tech sales, because sitting in a room with other people making cold calls, you learn a lot. Great. You know how my team simulates that? They have several different spots throughout their week where they sit on calls together and review them as a team without even me being there. This is something they do because my reps are freaking awesome and they're bought into the culture and they understand the importance of feedback and development. So they said, hey, Chet, we know you're really busy and you probably can't make another hour meeting. We're going to meet every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific, and we're all going to supply our own cold call and we're going to listen and give each other feedback as a group. Awesome. You know how much as a leader that made me feel great about my team and the culture that we've built? Who wants to sit on another meeting and get feedback from call coaching? They did. And they still do the call coaching that I do with them as well, one-on-one and in groups and things of that nature. And so companies have to be that biggest source of feedback. And you're completely right. It's like they didn't take that breath. They didn't go, hey, how can we be a company for 50 more years? What's working? What's not working? How can we supplement what's working? How can we make these things better for our people? And all they were thinking of is, God, when are all these strains going to be over so we can get back in the office? And I get it. Your biggest cost is your real estate. You might have a $30,000 a month lease on a really nice floor in a building on Regent Street where you're doing business, right? But you're being selfish now because you're thinking about your problem, not the problem that your people are facing, which is I can do my job from home, 3 feet away from my kids and my wife, and in my sweatpants and my sweater, right? In a more comfortable space with all my stuff. And guess what? If at 10 o'clock, I want to log off for an hour and go do a podcast with someone to drive more value, that's okay, because I also have non-important work I can do at 7 o'clock tonight when my kids are asleep, instead of doing that work already at work and then taking my work home with me as well. All my work is at home, so I can adjust when I need to get it done. A little different in sales. You have to follow a much more rigorous process. And this is someone who's done outside sales, as I talked about my State Farm experience for 5 years. I was then outside my first year in tech. My first inside sales job wasn't until 2020. And then the pandemic hit in March and I was back at home. So for me, I have that discipline and that structure. But great, then why doesn't every company hire a remote work consulting coach for their team? You know how many companies have asked me about remote work and how to do it better? 2. You know how many companies I've worked with in the last 2 years that have raised money? 2. Because they went, hey, we know we're going to be working from home. Let's ask somebody who knows how to do it. Best practices on not only leading and managing people, but how our reps can structure their day. Go invest money in that instead of trying to buy free lunch for everybody so they'll come back in your stinking office, because they're not coming back, and they'll leave you and they'll go somewhere where they can. I still think there's things in office that are valuable. Fly everybody out, save the money, fly everybody out at the end of quarter to do an offsite. Do something like that. But if you can't adapt to what your employees need, and you can't create that level of respect, support, and trust that they deserve, and it all starts with what? What does it all start with? It all starts with no. It's all about no. They're going to change my name. I'm not going to be the sales doctor. I'm going to be Dr. No. That's what we're going to change it to. I'm going to be the
no, you can't be Dr. No. Like
I know. Hey, hold on.
Amazon will come after you. they own that now.
Exactly. But it all starts with no, and you got to build that respect, that support, and that trust. And you got to walk the walk. You got to talk what you preach, or you got to live what you preach. Because if not, I mean, you're in for a heck of a ride as a company. But that's my 5 cents, right? 2 cents would have been a 15-minute, 20-minute episode. We're an hour and a half here. That's my 5 cents.
And what a 5 cents it has been. Like, Chet, superstar, honored to have you on today. Can you tell the lovely people how they can find you out on these interwebs?
Yeah, the best way to interact with me is on LinkedIn. If you search up Chet Lovegren, that's Lovegren, like I love to grin, but with an E instead of an I. That's the best way I can say it. You can look me up on LinkedIn. You can connect with me. I respond to every message, even if it's a pitch. Especially if it's a pitch attached to a connection request, I will let you know this is not the best way to reach out to me, and there are better ways to do sales, and I'll give you a free sample of my social selling playbook. But you can connect with me on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I have access to Pavilion. If you're interested in joining a professional development community, there are links there to be able to join Pavilion. You can also check me out on TikTok and Instagram, where I create a lot of content, comedy content, sales content. You can check out my podcast on Spotify. Every resource you would need is on my LinkedIn page. So just look me up on LinkedIn, Chet, C-H-E-T, Lovegren, Lovegren, the sales doctor. And I'm more than happy to connect and talk to anybody who's interested. You need a resource, you need a friend, you want to schedule 15 minutes and just chat things through. I want to be a resource. I'm here to, as you said, I'm here to make an impact. That's what I'm trying to become. I want to be a world shaker.
There you go. There you go. I'll put all of the information into the show notes, the description. So yes, find Chet, get in contact with him, and yeah, let's see how far we can go. Once again, thank you, Chet, for coming on today.
My pleasure.
No problem. And I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us to this point in the show. Please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. Have a great day, guys. Yes. Peace. And we are